Don't you just really enjoy it when a game comes out of nowhere and surprises you with how awesome it is? That's kind of the feeling I got when I started up and finished Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. And that's the game I'm going to be talking about right now. What is going on, guys? Randall Thor 19, the man with the million, back again with another video. And we're going to be spotlighting, reviewing Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice by Ninja Theory. Now, I am a fan of Ninja Theory. I'm a big fan of the Devil May Cry reboot, especially Enslaved Odyssey to the West. So I'm down to play whatever game they put out. So I was initially excited to play Hellblade when they announced it back in 2014. It's finally out now for $30 on the PS4 and PC. I played it on the PS4 Pro. It does have some resolution settings. You can choose a higher resolution or 60 frames, and of course I went with the 60 frames. But let's talk about the game and what I thought. Now, first off, I mentioned if you were going to play this game, you play it with headsets on, headphones, because my god, the sound design in this game is incredible. And because this game is all about a young woman's deep eternal torment, she hears voices. Senua hears voices in her head. So when you have the headphones on and they, you can hear them in your left ear and your right ear and then all around you, it honestly feels like the voices are in your head and you can kind of relate to Senua's internal torment that she's going through, this mental illness, this psychosis that she has. This game deals with a lot of heavy themes, and that is one of the best things about it. It looks great, it plays great, the story and narrative really drive the game, and I loved it. So we're going to talk about it. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm going to keep the story and some of the clips are very from the beginning, and I'm going to keep it vague as possible. So Senua is a Celtic warrior, right? She's on a journey deep into the underworld in search of her lost love, Dylan, who happened to be murdered by Vikings while she was away, and whose soul that she hopes to get back from their gods. You see, the marauding Vikings, they believed in, Zeus, not Zeus, but Balder and Odin and stuff like that. So she's trying to go to Helheim to face the god of the underworld, Hela, and to get the soul of her loved one back. And that the journey is what it is for her. But as you go through it, the voices, they'll tell you, you turn back, don't go. They constantly speak to her, and it's such an amazing experience. And it honestly, I was not prepared for what this game offered. It really digs deep into mental illness and things like that. Now, as for the gameplay, it is kind of basic. You do have the action combat like Devil May Cry, but they really toned it back. You have light attack, you have heavy attack, you have a melee, which will knock people's shields away, you have a dodge roll, you also have a parry. It is very basic. There are some kind of light combos you can mix in between, and in between those combat sections, it is kind of what some would call a walking simulator. You do kind of walk around these gorgeously depicted areas to kind of figure out some puzzles, which we'll mention first. But I wanted to talk more about the combat, because I honestly like the combat. It's easy and fast, but it never got old in my 8 hours of my first playthrough. I became a master of it, being able to parry any attack and quickly counterattack, rolling at the right time, killing each one of those enemies. And at first, the game only will throw you one enemy at you, and then it ramps up 2 enemies, 3 enemies, 4 enemies, 5 enemies. And by that point, you're just that proud Celtic warrior slashing down all of the enemies that puts first. It also kind of has this focus mode where you can hit R2 and you'll kind of get this matrix slowdown, which builds up as you hit people, and it's a really cool effect that you use later on. Now, I should mention the permadeath system. They do mention in the beginning of the game that if you die too much, your game progress might be erased. I died 4 times total in the game. 1 time to a boss. That was completely my fault. I never died at all in combat. And the 3 other times I died was in one specific area with the puzzle. I don't think the game is hard, and I played it on auto setting. If you're a fan and you're halfway decent at action games, you'll have no trouble mastering the combat. So I liked the combat quite a bit. I really did. Now, what you do in between the times of combat is you'll come into these areas. And each area is pretty self-contained for the most part. You explore. And sometimes when you explore, you'll find these audio logs. So one of the voices in Senua's head is Druth. And he will narrate some of the game's events and some of the past encounters that she has with Senua. And also, you'll find these, like, what do you want to call them, audio logs, but these little runes that you can focus on and look closer on with R2. And they'll tell the story, and they'll kind of repeat, like, Norse mythology. The birth of the gods and Odin, how Baldur died, the apocalyptic prophecy of Ragnarok, and it always ties back into the current story that is being told here. And I really enjoyed listening to all those and trying to find as many as I could. But back to the areas. So in between the combat, you come to these areas, and you do a little light puzzle solving. Now this is kind of the beginning of this game, 'cause you'll run into these puzzles, and I didn't think it was the game's strong suit. Normally, you'll come to a locked door, you'll see a glyph on it, and then you have to kind of go and search for that glyph in the area. I didn't particularly care for those, but later on in the game, as the game progressed, it got better, and they kind of mixed those up with different things. There's also some sort of illusion puzzle where you can kind of look through gates and see the world change, and you have to figure out how to get to it. So I wasn't necessarily too keen on the early stages of the puzzles in between the levels. I did feel it got much better as it went on. Now, when you go to fight Hela, you also, to be able to fight her to get your lover's soul back, you'll fight these bosses to be able to unlock the door. And there are quite a few boss encounters, and all of them are very unique, and they are really exceptionally memorable. I enjoyed each one of them, and I'm thinking of going back and replaying the game for a second time to go through some of those boss battles. Now, since this game is clearly about mental anguish, everything the game does, it is clearly in service of further developing Senua's struggle against her own disease and the darkness. Because you hear things when you're fighting, the voices will help you out. You'll hear evade or roll, and you can do all those different things. So they'll help you out there. And they'll even kind of help you out when you're trying to find the solutions to some puzzles. But her darkness is deep, and the mental anguish she feels is very strong. And the story really hits on those notes in ways I didn't really expect. And there are a couple sequences here that are honestly breathtaking at how gorgeous and beautiful everything is depicted, but at the same time, it is very sad. I felt for Senua. I really did. I felt for her. Now, the game runs at about 7-8 hours, depending on how long you get stuck in some of the puzzles or how good you are at combat. I think that is a definite, really good runtime because it doesn't outstay its welcome. It tells the story that it wants to tell, and Ninja Theory should be commended for telling a story that they clearly wanted to tell. Like, this is their story, and there was no, there's no, hints of a publisher, making changes. This is their very personal story from the start to finish. Even when you start up the game at the very beginning, they credit health, service specialists because they deal with a really heavy thing of mental anguish, mental illness that most games won't even bother touching. And it's such a refreshing change for a game. I can't get across how much I just love this game. From the beautiful landscapes to the voices that narrate the experience as you play, to those audio logs of the Norse mythology. I love listening to all that stuff. This game is incredible. incredible. And for you trophy hunters out there, this is an easy platinum. I only missed 2 audio logs, so I didn't get my first platinum, but almost all of the trophies, except for one, are unmissable. And this is a game that also, I feel, got better as it went. I feel like the beginning is a little slow, and some of the puzzles, especially in the first 2 areas, aren't good, but as the game progresses, they get more complex, and the game gets much better. So if you are looking for a game with a great story, some incredible narrative, and a developer who's trying to push the boundaries in games in a way that hasn't been done before, then pick up Hellblade. You will not be disappointed. If you're looking for a game that's going to last you 7 hours with some interesting combat and some light puzzle solving, then pick up Hellblade, because you won't be disappointed. It is such a fantastic game, and I know I kind of sound like a broken record, but I wanted to get across that point. I love this game. So at the end of the day, if asked for a score, I give it a 9. And it only doesn't rate higher because I felt some of the early sections and the gameplay element gets a little tad bit repetitive with, you know, finding out the puzzles in between the action combat. But everything else about the game elevates Hellblade to this standard. The story, the narrative, the focus on mental illness and psychosis, the sound design, the score in the game, the visuals. This is a masterpiece, and I commend Ninja Theory for sticking to their guns and making the game that they wanted to make. I absolutely adore Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, and I hope everybody out there picks this game up. Anyways, that's my review. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, consider subscribing for more content, and I'll see everybody in the next video. Later.